sound. Goodness me. Hello, Clive. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Can you hear the sound now? My bad. Sorry about that. There is a slight delay, of course, on these streams, so I'm just waiting for my lovely friend Clive to confirm that I do actually have audio on this live stream. Good now. Thank you very much, Clive. Appreciate it. So let me just quickly recap, and because unless somebody was lip reading, as they say, we're going to finish off. Hopefully, that's the aim today, to finish off this lovely helmet. And what we're going to try and tackle today is maybe the screw head that goes on this hinge and holds the visor in place. The visor, of course, being this part which we did in the last stream. So check that out. And there's a little stud thing that goes here. I may do that, but it's a fairly simple object, so I might skip it. I'm not sure. We'll see how we go. The other thing I want to do is create some padding internally for the helmet. When you look inside it, you're not going to see any, you're going to see all the insides from the outside of the outside, right? So it doesn't really make much sense. Yes, Clive says all good. Thank you very much. Fantastic. I hope you're well, Clive. Right. And also, yes, mustn't forget. Now, I know we've added some basic materials to our helmet. We've got this literally very basic materials. I mean, yeah. So hopefully I can show you also how to make that big red circle that goes on the side of the helmet. And that's also all procedural as well. So it's quite cool. And I'm going to have to fire up actually the previous version that I did. Oh, Clive says he's very good. Excellent. Good to hear. So yeah, the circle for the material, the padding inside, and the screw head should probably do that. So I'll tell you what we'll start off with. I'm going to start off with the padding because that's quite fun to do, and it uses a lot of good techniques that I've used elsewhere in this stream for making not just this object but a lot of my videos. I tend to use the same techniques because Blender has only got so many features, right? So you go back to those same features over and over. Right, without further ado, let me just save that there. I'm also going to fire up actually another instance of Blender, just so that I've got, where's my launch window? There it is. I'm going to fire up another version of Blender just on my second screen. So I actually have the original one that I built, which is this one here. So here you can see the big red circle that I just talked about. Here you've got the little stud thing in that recessed hole there. And if I just hide this platform, I'll just move it down. Do that, move it down over there. Oops, got two parts to it. Let's move that down as well. If we look inside, you can see we actually have some padding for our helmet, which is pretty cool. So that's what we're going to be doing as well. I'll just move this visor out of the way. Here, oops, I've got a mirror object on it. It does. I'll just turn that off then. Just turn off the visibility. There we go. Yeah, you can see the visor there. The padding sits inside there. So that's what we're going to do today. Let me put this back to... It was saved. Right, anyway, without further ado, let's switch back over to our other Blender, our live version. And, oh, Clive, thank you very much. That's really beautiful, he says. Thank you. Glad you like it. Yeah, this is a lovely helmet. Just a very quick background, I guess. It's this helmet that I found online. Just open it up, show you some reference images that I saved. I mean, it's inspired by this. It's not a direct rip-off or copy as such. Yeah, the hinges and bits and pieces, but this is the helmet that I found online. I really liked it and thought that's really kind of inspired me to make my own version in Blender. But yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm not going to go to town with the detail. I'm not going to go crazy because there's a lot of detail in this. You've got the clip, for example, or the clap. The clap. You don't want the clap. You've got the detail here, the little clamp thing, whatever it's called. I'm lost for words now. So yeah, I'm not going to model that today, if at all. Where's our screw? There's our screw head there. That goes inside the hinge. That's pretty easy to do, as is this little stud thing. Then of course you have the, here's another color scheme, really nice paint effect there. The blue and the orange look beautiful. Yeah, so, and the padding. So, and here's the screw head on the hinge. So you can see there it's pretty rough looking, pretty basic stuff. That's essentially what I'm doing, Clive, just to bring you up to speed, mate. Let's move that out of the way. And let's close that. Excuse me. Let's have a bit of water before we continue. Very good. Right. Let's crack on, shall we? Let's do the padding and see how we're going to figure out how to do this. So first of all, we don't need to see our visor. So let's turn that off. And you can see there we've got our gasket. I remember that from John's education on the previous stream. One of the people in the chat, our good friend John, he's a motorbike enthusiast, and he was giving me all the news and updates on what this is called and what that's called and what this does. So thanks for that, John. If you see this, I appreciate it. So there's our gasket, what it is, and there's our helmet. So what I'm going to do is essentially I'm going to copy this helmet, right? The actual model itself. So let's do that with Shift D. I forgot to put the screencast keys on. Sorry about that. There we go. Let's turn those on. Let's use my add-on in there, BB Toolkit Pro and free. If you're interested in that, check it out in the, I've got a video about it on my channel or two. It's a handy little utility, productivity add-on that I use all the time for doing things like wireframe overlays, face orientation, checking and applying scale, and many, many other things, as well as modifiers and adding objects, lights, render settings, and all sorts. But anyway, I digress. Let's duplicate this helmet, Shift D, and then right click to leave it where we copied it from. And what we want to do with this, let's see where the origin is. That's at 0. If I move it over here for a minute, we can see it there. What I'm going to do is, in fact, not even that, because we don't actually need all of these details here for this. So ideally, you want to take an old version of your helmet, if you've saved incremental versions of it, you want to save that and just take a previous version which hasn't got all this detail on it, and then just make that as your inner padding. We really don't need to complicate it more than we need to. So I might just go in and rather than doing, trying to find an older version of this, what I'm going to do is actually get rid of all of this detail and just keep it a basic sphere thing again. So let me just quickly do that, and I can always also use the I haven't got it here, but I can actually apply a shrink wrap modifier, bring it back to its original shape as well. So this may not be pretty, but it will get the job done. So let's see if we can do that. I'm going to select these 4 polygons just there and press Ctrl plus. In fact, let's just turn off the subdivision modifier. And do we even need the yeah, we do need the mirror modifier, of course we do. I'm just going to press Ctrl plus on the numpad, grow the selection until we get that. I'm going to delete those. So delete faces. Now we have a hole where we had that lovely stuff there. Let's do the same for these guys down here. So again, the same thing. Control numpad plus, grow the selection, and delete these faces there. Then we've got these holes there. Let's do the same for these up here. Let's just select these together and do Control plus and delete faces. So let's first of all start by tidying these guys up here, and it should be fairly straightforward. In fact, I might just delete these as well. I think that's just going to overcomplicate things. So let's delete these and see how we go. This could be bad, right? But I will give it my best shot. So what I'm going to do is select all of these guys and press F to fill. And then I'm going to select vertices like this. In fact, let's start with this one here. Press J to join. And do the same for these ones here. Now we've basically recreated that, but it won't be perfect. You can see there it's kind of flat, whereas this is nice and rounded. So not the best idea, but not to worry. We're going to use a shrink wrap modifier, as I said. Having said that, something to stop us just to help it along. What I'm going to do is switch over to a normal transform orientation. Just pull that out like that. So it kind of flows with the rest of the topology there. And this one we can put roughly in the middle. I want to press GG, which is G twice, to vertex slide that around there. Cool, that's done. In fact, we could actually, another way to do that, there's always more than one way, right? We can do Alt click this one. And with that selected, I'm going to do M, merge vertices at center. And that will put it right in the middle. That's a little bit nicer. All we need to do now is switch to edge mode, select these guys, and then delete, dissolve edges. And dissolve because that retains the topology that we have there. And finally, I'm just going to move this down by vertex sliding it by pressing GG. Move it down, something like that. Now we've recreated that part. Let's work on this part here. It should be, again, pretty straightforward. It's a little bit more complicated because we have this to think about as well. This big hole just here. So I'm going to Alt click and select that and make that a lot smaller. It needs to be something like that perhaps, probably where it started. Let's move that along by GG, like that. Now we can move this one along, so it's aligned with these ones. If I do GG, I can move it this way and that way, limits. Same with this one, GG, Alt. First you need to get the right axis or edge and then hold the Alt key. Something like that. Let's do the same for this one, GG. Pull it back a little bit, hold down Alt, and bring it forward. Now you can see now we're starting to get those squares back into place, right? Hope that's making sense. Clive, what do you think? Am I making sense? Am I talking nonsense? Let me know. Let's pick these guys and press F to fill. Like before, I'm just going to join these together by pressing J. Two vertices, press J, join. And that will do. We can probably bring that out just a smidge. Like that. Again, doesn't really matter because this is all collapsed anyway from the ear part that I made earlier. Right, let's do Alt click there. Press M, merge at center. And then edge selection, let's get rid of these bad boys there. So I'm going to do Control Delete, which is actually dissolve edges. Control Delete, shortcut there. Top tip today from Theo. Thank you very much. I think we're going to leave it there. Let's maybe tidy up some of the topology because we've got some like spacing issues here. So maybe bring this one down a touch. The GG like that. That one across. That one across as well. This one can go here. You can see pretty simple stuff. Maybe move that over a little bit. So just very slowly making some minor tweaks. I'm pressing GG all the while I'm doing that. Make it very easy. Like that. I think that's good enough. There we have our basic helmet back again. So I'm going to save that. And if I just find that in the outliner here, it's called quad sphere low, whatever. Let's rename that to, oops, not hide it. Let's call that helmet padding. Go for that, there it is. And I'm also going to create a backup of that, just in case I mess this up. You never know. Oh no, before we do that, I need to get rid of this. Oh dear, missed a bit. Right, let's get rid of this boy. So let's get rid of these, select these two, press Control Numpad plus, select these, and these as well. Let's delete these. Now I'm just going to merge these together. So selecting these two, press M, merge at center. Do the same there. And for these ones here. Now we have these edges we don't really need. So I'm going to select these. And like before, remember the shortcut to dissolve them? If you said Control Delete, You're right. 1,000,000 points to you. Well done. Ta-da! Now we just need to shift these up a little bit. So select these edges and GG, slide them up. Rough will do. Nothing specific or very precise. Ballpark, eyeball it, something like that. That's great. Fantastic. There we go. That was quick. Like I said, I'm going to make a backup of this. So I will select... Oh, Clive, if you're still there, can you please let me know if there's an echo on the audio? I forgot to check this earlier on. In my previous stream, there was a nasty echo in the audio, which I didn't realize at the time. So sorry about that. So I want to make sure today there's no echo because I made some slight audio changes in the settings. So if someone could let me know. No, audio is good, Clive says. No echo, right? Testing 1, 2, and 3. No echo. Right click to leave it there. I'm going to call that padding. Let's call that backup. We're going to turn off all of this stuff here because we don't need to select it or see it or render it. So that's what these are. Let's turn them all off. Ideally, you want to create another. Well, let's do it now then. Let's do a new collection. Call it backup. And I'm going to select that, put it back to 0. So put 0, put it back in its origin point. I'm going to select that and drag and drop it into the backup collection. Now we can turn that off like that and it disappears. Right, so we've got this lovely thing now. So what I'm going to do, first of all, let's put it back to where it belongs over here. So 0, 0, 0 in the world location. And in fact, let's also take these guys and put these into our backup folder as well. There we go. Remember, we do have our visor. Oops, that's not the one. There it is, just there. So that's great. Yeah, so let's select our helmet padding. There it is. And let's turn on our sub-D modifier. See what happens there. Like we may not even need to do anything like a shrink wrap on this because it should just work as is. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I just turn off the turn off the subdivision modifier. Also, I think I should apply the mirror modifier. I'm going to do that for now. Let's apply that. Now we've got just one object across both sides, right? In both both sides on the x-axis. You can see there. So the reason for that is because now I'm going to add you guessed it, solidify modifier. I'm going to use my add-on to do that very quickly. If you don't have the add-on, no worries. Just head over to add modifier, generate, solidify. Same thing. So I'm just going to do that here, leave it on default and click add. And I might as well just bring this out so we can see a little bit better. There it is. And there's our modifier, solidify. And that's coming in after this smooth modifier and after the subdivision. So this may actually need to go here and at the top of the stack, essentially. Because remember, Blender reads these and executes them from top to bottom. So a bit like Photoshop or any other drawing package like Affinity Photo or something like that. So that's how that works. So step 1, let's get the solidify modifier settings tweaked a little bit. Let's do even thickness. That pretty much speaks for itself. Normals I like to put on high quality. Materials, I don't really play around with these too much. You can do some great things with these, but I'm not going to play around with those today. I'll leave it at its default. All I'm going to do is, let's see which way this is actually making this thicker, right? Turn on the wireframe so we can actually see. So if I increase and decrease this number, you can see it's going inwards, which is exactly what we want. We don't want it to go this way because that's going to interfere with our helmet. So if I put that back to 0, you can see that's now on the outside of our helmet and it's essentially growing like that. It looks a bit very weird. You want it to go inside, like so. So give it a thickness that you think is appropriate based on the thickness of whatever that lining needs to be. And once we've done that, let's turn off the wireframe. Just head over to my add-on there. If you don't have the add-on, if you're not sure where that is, it's under this area here in the top right. If you select this menu, click wireframe, just there. So far, so good. Excellent. Let's crack on. Right. We've got the solidify sort. Let's leave it at that thickness. In fact, let's round it off to 0.225. I like even round numbers, or numbers that make a little bit more sense to me. Now, if we enable sub D, what is happening? Well, that looks pretty good straight out the gate. That's pretty impressive. I do say so myself. Now, the issues we have is this is probably clipping into this part here behind the hinge. It's probably clipping inside this area here, and it's very much so clipping here as well, which we don't want. We don't want to be seeing these parts on the outside. We just want the inside padding, right? That's what also we want to see. Right, so how are we going to fix that? Well, what I'm going to do is, let's turn on wireframe just for a second. I can actually see the topology that I'm getting here. You can see this is the topology that we have. I'm actually pretty happy with the way this is actually curving. You can see how smooth that looks, and that's pretty accurate in terms of a padding, I would say. And the reason that's happening is because, if I just turn the wireframe on again, turn this off. The reason that's happening is because we have edge loops here that are working as support loops. So without these edge loops, which are obviously on the other side of this modifier, let's move this again here so we can see that. So these edge loops here, oops, these ones are the ones that are creating these inner edge loops here, because they're being duplicated by this, right? By this function here. That's easy to, that's exactly what we want actually. It's pretty good. And the only thing I want to do is, like I say, this is interacting with other parts of the helmet. Like it's clipping through this and other parts. We don't want that. So what I'm going to do is put that back to 0 again. If you don't want to do this manually like this, you can hover over this and press backspace. If I undo that, if you don't want to do that, you can just press Alt G. Alt G will put the object back to its default location, which is 0, 0, 0. That's there. So let's try and figure this out. As I said before, I'm going to apply, I think I'm going to apply the solidify modifier first of all. So let's do that. Let's make a backup of this before we do that. So Shift D, right click to leave it there. Let's drag that into our backup collection. That will disappear. That's great. Let's select our padding and apply the solidify modifier. That's good. Now we actually have topology we can play around with inside and on the outside. What I'm going to do is, first of all, turn X-ray on. That lets us see through our object. Turn the wireframe off. You can see that the sort of clipping we're getting there. What I'm going to do is select the padding, tab into edit mode, go into face selection, put this back to global transforms. I'm going to select all of the faces that I don't need anymore. Now we're not going to see any of the faces that are up against the helmet on the inside. You're only going to see the ones here, of course. You're not going to see the ones on the outside of the helmet. So we don't need all of those vertices and faces, adding all of that topology, making our renders perhaps a little bit slower. So we're going to delete all of this, and that will help get rid of all of this stuff out here. So to do that, I think the first thing I'm going to do, this is a neat little trick, is I'm going to select all of the faces by pressing A. So press A to select everything. And then I'm going to shrink them just a little bit, so they're not actually touching the outside of the helmet. There's a microscopic gap between them. And to do that, you don't want to press S for scale, because that won't do it in the right way, okay? It might look as though it is, but it really isn't. What you want to do is press Alt S, and that will give you scaling along the object's normals. You can see there I'm making it fatter, and thinner without actually reducing the size of it. And that's exactly what you want to do. So I'm going to right click to stop that for a moment. And I'm going to just come in here for a little bit. Let's turn off our gasket. You can see there, that's our helmet just there. And this is our padding. And we're going to select everything. Go back into edit mode. And we're going to press Alt S and hold down the Shift key to get really nice control like that. Bring it in just a little bit like that. And at this point, you may probably want to turn on the subdivision modifier to see how that behaves. Let's bring back our gasket. You can see there, now we have this tiny gap between the helmet and the trim, the padding, I should say. That's pretty good. Now I've noticed here, we don't have any support loops. If I just turn that off, we don't have any support loops at the bottom as we do at the top here, which is why when you look at the top and the bottom of these areas here, oops, this part is it's got a defined edge. This one down here is much softer. That's because we don't have, and that might be fine. That might be what you want. It's also too high up. I want to bring that down so it's actually around the level of the metal trim at the bottom there. I'm going to tap into edit mode. Make sure that I'm in face selection. And I'm going to alt click, hold down alt and click on one of these edges here. That will select the edge loop that runs all the way around the bottom of the helmet there. So now what I need to do is press 3 on the numpad, switch over to the side view. I'm literally going to move that down like this to about there. You can see as I move it down, it clips through. That's okay. Let's just keep doing that. About there. And I could actually just scale that down. So press S to scale and bring it in. Not too much. Maybe about there. And that should be fine. You can see there it's not clipping through. Make sure that's the case. And in fact, a good test for this, let's save, make sure we save. A good test for this is to actually assign a material to this that's maybe a bit garish or bright. If you see that clipping through, like here, for example, you will then be able to easily and quickly see where you need to fix things. So let's do that. Let's go to our material tab here. Makes ourselves a little bit more space. And we don't need these materials that were inherited from the main helmet. Remember, we copied that to make the padding. So it's inherited its materials and everything. So we're going to select the padding and delete these two. Like that. I'm going to create a new material and call that helmet padding. Ta-da! Magic. If I go into rendered mode, at the moment it's just a default, shader. You can change the color of it and do all sorts of nice things. So for now, I'm just going to make that maybe a bright red, like that. Make that roughness quite shiny. Bring it down the roughness. So it's very smooth, so we can see that. And if you want to make this really crazy, you can actually just turn that way up, for example. Open up emission, drag and drop this color to that one. And at the moment, it's 0 there. So emission is, if you're not familiar with emission, it's essentially emitting light. It becomes an emissive material. If I enter a value of 1, which is higher than 0, we now have a very bright emissive interior padding. That's a good way of actually spotting, where it's going through our helmet, and we don't want that. So we're going to fix that. You can see there it's going through there as well, and over here, and over there. But we're okay down the bottom here, so that's good. We didn't go wrong there. That's pretty cool. Quite like that effect. We're not going to do that, so let's continue working on this. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to leave these for now and come back to this material later on in the stream. Right. Welcome viewers, if I haven't said anything. For anybody out there in a little while, my apologies. We've got some viewers there. Thank you very much for your support. It's really appreciated. And I'll just take a moment to do a bit of a self-publicity, if that's a thing. Don't cringe. I'm not very good at this. This video is sponsored by nobody. So yeah, it's sponsored by me. So what I'm going to say is, if you want to support my channel and the work that I do and all these lovely live streams that I'll be putting out as often as I possibly can, then I'm going to put in the description at some point, if not already actually, there's a link to my Patreon account, which I only launched just the other week, and I haven't really publicized it. That's a great way to support the channel. In fact, the best way to support the channel. If not, if you're not keen on Patreon, you can become a member on the YouTube channel. And that's a great way, again, to support the channel and the work that I do. And if you want to maybe purchase the add-on that I have, BB Toolkit Pro, like I say, there are videos on my channel to show you how that works and what it does and why it's cool. You might find that of interest. Another great way to support the channel, just a one-off little payment and you're good to go. Another way, there's a link as well to support this stream on Streamlabs. That's also in the video description. Right, publicity over, ad over. Let's go back to our main feature, the padding. So let's select the padding. Let's switch over to Studio. Solid viewport shading solid, right? That's what it is, not studio. Studio's here, am I thinking? And let's select that. Oh, face orientation, let's not forget that. So it's something you want to check. Get into a habit of doing, I forgot as well. And check your face orientation. And that means if these are facing the wrong way, then you're in trouble, right? You're gonna have problems. So you don't want to see red, you want to see blue on everything that's looking outwards. So if you think of your body as a model, 3D model in Blender, if you look at your body from the outside, if you can see red, that's not good. That wouldn't be good in real life either, not just 3D, right? But if you see blue, that's not good if you're human either. But if you see blue, that means your normals are facing the right way. So that's what this is. And I've got that on my add-on just there. If not, you can come to this menu here and select face orientation. Magic. Anyway, that's really important to check because you can run into serious problems later on when you're rendering, or things look really bad and you're not sure why that is. So do make sure you check that as often as you can. Right, let's fix these little problems. So what I'm going to do is, I really want to see the helmet and the padding together. I'm going to switch over to X-ray, tab into edit mode. I'm going to select all of the faces around this area, but I don't want to select the ones on the inside. So for example, if I do C for Charlie and scroll my mouse wheel and get this selection brush, if I do this, just right click to stop that, you can see I've selected everything on the outside right through to the other side. And that might be a good step in making our selection. So I think I will do that actually in hindsight. So if I press 3 on the numpad and I press C for Charlie and I click, just make that a little bit smaller by scrolling the mouse wheel, I'm going to paint over these faces here like that, and then right click to stop selecting. You can see I've selected on the outside on both sides and on the inside on both sides. Now if I switch off the X-ray mode, turn off the subdivision modifier, because again it makes it difficult to see what we're doing. There's our selection. All I need to do is deselect those, right? So you can do that two ways. You can hold down shift and click on each one individually like that. You can hold down shift and click, or you can press the C key again, C for Charlie, and with the mouse button, middle mouse button, click these like that, and you've brushed that selection away. If I turn X-ray back on now, all we've got now selected is the outside faces of that inner padding. So with that done, I'm going to press delete faces. And of course that means we now have a hole. If I bring that forward, turn off X-ray, you can see we have a hole on the outside of that inner padding. I mean, technically we don't need any of these faces actually. We could just get rid of the whole lot. And that might be a good idea, to be honest. It would save on rendering and time and all sorts. So we could do that. And I'm tempted to do that actually. So yeah, let's do that. It is the best way to do it. So I won't cut that corner today. What I'm going to do, You can do that if you like. That's absolutely fine. Don't forget to do the ones here at the front and the ones up here where the the little air holes are, the vents, if you like. How's everyone doing today? All good? Had a good day? It's Friday. I know it's Friday. The weekend's coming. Thank God. I'm not going to lie, it's been a bit of a rough week for me this week. So this is actually helping me get past that. So yeah, that's great. But let me, yeah, I was going to say, you can delete these faces. If you don't want to delete everything, just delete the ones that are actually protruding through the helmet, right? Clive says, had a great day. Thanks for asking. You're very welcome. I'm glad you had a great day. That's great. What did you do, Clive? Anything good? Anything you can tell us about? Let's delete these. Let's delete these faces. Ta-da! And you could leave it there. Alt-G, put it back there. And if we turn on our subdivision modifier, if I select the padding, put it into rendered mode. Oh, we're almost there. Yeah, we can see the inside of the helmet there. We're still not quite there. Okay, so let's tap back into that. Turn off sub-D. Turn on X-ray. Back to solid. Oh, Clive, it's a secret. Oh, mate, it's intriguing. Some secrets are good to have. Right, let's let's select these outside vertical. I picked the wrong ones. You can see there, I've deleted them down here. In fact, I should have deleted them up here, and I can't select them because I've got X-ray on. Let's turn X-ray off. Let's go back to our helmet. Let's just delete all of those, like I said. Bring it out. Tap into edit mode. Let's delete all of the ones on the inside we don't need. I'm going to press, let's start off by pressing on the top view. Press 7 on the numpad. Let's select these guys here. Just the 4 at the top. And then hold down Control and press numpad plus. Grow the selection. Do we get that? That's looking like my head now, right? Let's keep growing the selection. So Control plus. So we get to about there. If we go any further, we're selecting this as well. We don't want to select these. We want to keep these guys here. So minus plus. Sorry, minus plus. What am I even saying? Control minus on the numpad. Make the selection smaller. And we can delete these for now. So delete faces. Oh yeah, that looks like more like my head now. Let's make these guys, select these guys. Delete these. Let's make them all selection. Let's select these 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, and Control plus. Delete these. Remember, you don't want to delete the ones at the bottom or around the edges of the visible areas. You want to keep those to maintain the support loops. Really important. Let's continue selecting these guys here, these 3 here, Control plus. We've got that selected now, and delete. Another way to do this is, if you don't want to do it this way, obviously you can hold down Alt and click on these, select edge loops like that. But you can also press the C key for Charlie, as we did earlier, just paint your selection. Like that. If you make a mistake, like you select these here, just press down the middle mouse key and then unselect those. You can do that as well. So I'll continue selecting these, like so. We've got those there. And let's grab these guys. And that one there. I think that's it. Let's press delete. Faces. Let's turn on wireframe, sorry, not wireframe, face orientation. That really gives us a clear indication of what we've got deleted and what isn't. That makes it really obvious now that we've got just the trim down here, and all of this stuff is just the inside, and that's exactly what you want. Superb. Right. The only thing I want to do now is maybe tighten up this edge loop down here. If I just turn on the subdivision modifier, that becomes very soft, which is fine. But I'm going to actually tighten it up just a smidge. I'm going to turn that off again, and in edge selection mode, turn off face orientation for a moment. Let's alt click anywhere near this edge loop here that runs across around. And you just have to click on it. You can click near it. So hold down Alt, click near it, and you've got that selection. With that done, you're not going to move it down like this because that would just give you this like weird clipping again. Let's press GG or edge slide and bring that down. Hold down the shift key if you want finer control. I'm going to bring it down to about there. Remember, GG. And with that done, let's now turn this back on. And that's giving us a much nicer edge on the outside there, a bit harder, which is cool. Perhaps I can make that a little bit harder. So GG, bring it down a bit nearer, like that. And finally, I'm going to select, let's turn that off again. I could select this edge loop here and press GG and actually bring that down to the bottom there. But I won't do that. I'm actually going to add, you've got some weird spacing here, but it doesn't really matter really. I'm just going to add another edge loop and a support loop. And do you know how to do that? I wonder. It's one of the most common things you do in 3D, whether it's Blender, Maya, or anything else. And in Blender, to do that, you press Control R. So Control R, move your mouse pointer, anywhere over the model, and you get these little lines that appear, these yellow lines. So that's showing you where you're going to place the loop cut. So I'm going to click here, and then click, and then move where I want to place that. So I'm going to place it around there, like that. If that's not where you want to put it, you can actually change it. Before you click away, you can change it here, over here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do, also you can also do GG, press G twice, and slide it. And that's fine. Let's have a look now. That looks like, you can see there we've got that defined, those edges defined a lot nicer now. That's looking great. I think we're pretty much there. Let's come back to, let's leave the sub D modifier on. Put this back to 0 with Alt G. Put it back over there. Let's save that. And let's hit render mode. Now the trick now is to look out for any glowing red, essentially, parts clipping through the helmet, the outside of the helmet. So if I bring that into focus, you can see there, we're good to go. We're good to go. Not down here, we've got a problem there. We're good on this side, and of course that means we're good on this side, as you can see there. Let's quickly add a mirror modifier to these guys as well. So again, I'll do that with my add-on. Click mirror, click on object. I'm actually going to use this empty as my mirror object. So I'm going to click the eyedropper, select the mirror object, that's what I called it, and click add. Before you do that, make sure you select the right axis. Here, I want to select the x-axis, which it is there, and click add. And now we've got that on that side. Let's move that up in the stack above the sub D modifier. Let's do the same for our plastic piece there. So again, same settings, click add, and it should be on that side now. And it's not because I forgot to select the object. So let's click on that little eyedropper and select that one there. And there you go. Looking good. Marvelous. Right, let's fix this little clipping issue we have here. So let's go back to solid mode. You can see there the clipping is quite obvious now. We're going to select this inner padding, tab into edit mode, and in edge selection, I'm going to alt click this edge loop there. It goes all the way around like that. And all I'm going to do is press S to scale that. And that should be all we need to do. So let's go turn off X-ray and keep an eye on this part here. And to help us along, we can actually select this little icon here on the subdivision modifier. And this icon essentially is to enable the cage. So the cage will show you the result of the sub D modifier in real time. So if I click that, you can see there, that's what it looks like. If I press S for scale, hold down shift, just bring that in till it clips through. I'm not sure if that's going the right way, but I don't know what it's doing over here. It might be an issue. It might be an issue here still. let's go into side view and turn on, let's go to X-ray. You can see there it's kind of going in on itself there. But on this side, it's going out this way. That's not good. That's all we need to do now is just move it manually to the right. So I'm going to put that into view there and click on the green arrow and just move it around like that. And that gives it a nicer finish. Don't need to go more than that. Let's turn off X-ray and let's check to see if that's fixed the issue. Again, I probably need that to go down a little bit further, so let's do that. Let's turn off sub D, face select, alt click, and Control plus, grow the selection. Let's bring these down. Let's turn on the cage now. Bring these down until we see our padding just shy of the metal trim there, like that. And then that looks pretty good. If you want to tighten this up a little bit further, and I might do that actually, I'm going to turn that off. What I'm going to do is select, in fact I don't need to select anything, I can just literally press Ctrl R to add a loop cut just here and move it just near this edge here. That would tighten up this whole edge. So like that. Now we've got this harder edge there. It might be sticking out too much now. So let's select face select again. Turn off the modifier. Select these guys. Control plus to grow the selection. Turn that back on. And side view. Let's bring that up. Like that. I think that's good to go. Let's render that. Now we can select this material that we have I created earlier, the red one, the emission. Let's turn that off now. We don't need to see that anymore. So 0, that becomes a red, very rough material. So it's got barely any highlights. Now, to create a basic material for this, it can be anything you like. I don't know what type of material that's made of. Is a foam or memory foam even, something breathable but also provides protection, right? But anyway, I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to use my intuition and just go with some sort of foamy diffused material. It's not metallic clearly, so don't use that, but we also want a little bit of and today's interrupter is Facebook. Goodbye. Yeah, we want a bit of no, we don't want it to be completely rough. We want a bit of feedback visually, so let's put that to 0.5. Why not? Leave it at its default value. Specular, leave that again at its default value. That's fine, of 0.5. And the color we can get rid of, so we can change the color now. You might like red. You can leave it as red. I'm actually going to make it. Let's get rid of the saturation. Because now it's a white. Let's bring that down. Let's ask the audience. Guys, guys and girls? What color should the interior of our padding be? What should the padding color be? Is it a nice brown? I think that's probably a good idea actually, because it is a retro style helmet. Clive, I'll let you decide on this. Be gentle. Let me know what color I should make the inside. So I go for the brown, the classic brown, which I love. While you're thinking about it, I'm going to do it exactly that. I'm going to go to put it over here. Bring it up, bring up the brightness a little bit. You can see that we're now getting the brown hint. That the tint of brown, I should say. Perhaps a little bit brighter. That's too much saturation. Let's bring it down. Something like that, maybe a little bit darker. Now we have that kind of leathery brown. I think it looks fantastic. You like black? Why, Clive? Why? Black. Hey, I did say I would do what you said, so I will do what you said. Let's do black. Let's turn the saturation right down. Right down. Bring that down. Put a near black. Like that. Clive, I'll meet you not even way more than halfway. I'll actually keep it a hint of brown. I hope that's okay for you. Please say yes. I think that's good to go. Marvelous. Right, let's go. Let's keep moving forward. Lo, I just like to be awkward, he says. You're not awkward, Clive. Not at all, mate. That's fine. I'm kidding. What have we got to do now? Ah, yes, we've got to do the little stud thing. And let's bring our visor back. Oh, that's so much better. I'll tell you what's going to elevate this to the next level. Sounds good. Lovely. And I was going to elevate this to the next level. You know what it is. You've probably been waiting for this moment. It's the red circle. Come on, you can admit it. It's the red circle. That's what you came here for today, isn't it? You want to see this bad boy? Red circle and how I did that? Let's do that then. I'm going to literally copy this material here, because I don't remember how to do it off the top of my head. I'm going to select the helmet. And there it is. Let me walk you through this very quickly. There's a couple of things, or one thing really, that make up the whole material. And it is a very basic material. You can go to town with this, make it metallic, and maybe give it like a metallic paint look with those little metallic particles in the paint. And that's fantastic. You can do that. But I'm going to keep it very simple today. And also, if you have Blender Kit, which I've got installed here as the add-on, you can go up to this little, probably see it a bit clearer over here. Yeah. So, oops. So if you go to here, you've got Blender Kit, and you can actually select here, material. Then here you can type in something like car paint and press enter. Now we have all of these lovely materials. That is beautiful. Look at that. That's gorgeous. We could use that. We've got some other ones here. That's really nice. Sounds great. Yeah, these are all lovely. There's plenty more where that came from. So yeah, look at that. Wonderful. So if you want to do that, very simply, just drag and drop onto your model. It's that easy. And shall I show you that? So we wanted a helmet. Let's create I think if you drag and drop it onto an existing color, I don't think it overwrites it. I think it just puts it at the top. Or does it? Let's see what happens if I drag and drop that onto the helmet. It tells you there on the screen. I was going to point with it, but you can't see. You can see there it says quad sphere low .011. Let's drop it there. What happens? There you go. It actually replaced the blue car paint as it replaced the one I had there before. If I undo that and then add a new slot like this and make that slot go to the top by pressing these buttons here. And now, how do I open the thing? There it is. If I drag and drop that now, it should add it, but it doesn't to the empty slot. That's because it's replacing the one that's assigned those polygons. That's why that's doing that. You could make a backup of the other one. So here and go to helmet, whatever that was, right? You could do that, make it a backup. Anyway, there's our helmet in blue. Metallic paint, metallic particles included. So Blender Kit is awesome for getting things done quickly. I think that's why I don't spend a lot of time making materials, not only because of Blender Kit, but if you look at something like Superhive, formerly known as Blender Market, you can go and find material packs there for like a few dollars, a few bucks. And I saw one the other week that was like 5,000 materials for like $5. So for me, I'd rather spend my time modeling things and learning how to create awesome models and lovely things to, you know, make me happy and hopefully inspire people out there. Beautiful color coordination. Thanks, Clive. Yeah, that's why I don't do many materials. It's like the time I have to invest in that. For me, it doesn't seem to be worthwhile. For me, that's just my take on it. You know, your mileage may vary. But yeah, I like to model things, so I like to spend my time really doing that. So anyway, having said that, let's get rid of. I'm going to actually revert this in case I overwrite it. Bring that back. Let's head over to shading. And there's our, make that full screen. full screen, by the way, is Control Spacebar. And then go back to not full screen, it's Control Spacebar again. There you go, just a toggle. There it is. Right, so there's two things I need to tell you about this, how this works. First of all, you do need a UV map. Some people may argue you don't, but I think it just helps make it a little bit easier because it's a very simple projection from the side, you know, of the helmet. So that's very straightforward to do. So if you plug that into a mapping node and tell it, hey, use the UVs, and here's the UVs that I created. The second part of this is the circle, of course, and that you can use a gradient texture. And grab some water. And this part over here, I'll just skip ahead a little bit. This part over here is a color or a mix shader set to color. And I've got two colors there. One's a white, one's a red. And the factor is this color ramp. So if I just come out of full screen now and switch over to rendered mode, watch what happens when I select or tweak these values here, or these colors. So just bring that into view there, like that. And if I slide this white one this way, the red circle becomes, at some point it will break the helmet because it's going to overflow around the edge, right? Around the, what you call it, the poles of the helmet. That looks pretty good like that, actually. Where's the visor? Can I hide that? There it is. Yeah, I quite like that. There you go. So if I bring that back this way, the circle gets smaller and smaller until it becomes nothing, right? Like that. It's still in there, but it's very, very... No, it's not. It's not even very small. You can't even see it. If I do it a little bit, there it is. There. That's what that is. And that's how I created that. That's about halfway, right? It goes about there. Through that stud. If I remember from the reference material, it's about halfway through there. And this one just tells you to make it a sphere. That's what that is, quadratic sphere, rather than a linear gradient. That's all that is. And then I played around with the location values. I didn't think I'd need to do that with the UV projection. Maybe I got this wrong. For example, somebody let me know in the comments if someone is seeing this. If I just quickly add a search for texture, coordinate. Maybe if I used object, you can see the circle is actually over here. I'm thinking this would have been a better way to do it than actually using that now. If I reset this, and make a copy of this first, Shift D, copy that, keep that there as a backup, plug that into that as it was. Now we've got this one. Let's reset this to its default. So hovering over this, you can just press backspace, and our circle has disappeared. So where is it? And I suspect it's actually pointing either at the bottom of the helmet or through the hole in the front of the helmet. But to find out where that is, we can start playing around with these values. There it is. There you go. It's kind of doing something. We can play around with this one. If I go to the side view, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So you just need to place that by playing around with these values like that. That's roughly around there. Does that do anything? Yeah, it goes up and down. That's great. Then we can use this again. Maybe we can play around with the scale by click and drag and then move my mouse. Actually influence all of those in one go. You can see I'm going left and right, but it doesn't get any bigger. It gets smaller again. It collapses in on itself. And that's where this comes in. You can do that. That's another way to do it. You can use this method. I'll just leave that there. Pause the video if you want to copy that. In fact, I'll make it full screen. You can see the whole node just like that. Oh, it's there, isn't it? No, there. Let me get my head out of the way. I just realised I've got a head there in the way. There it is. Like that. So that's one method. The other method is to use this one. I'll plug that into here. And we get the same result. So you can use a projection or you can use the object. I'm going to show you the projection method because you may want to put maybe a label on there instead of a procedural material. Maybe you've got a sticker, something like, I don't know, a big smiley emoji or something, whatever it might be. You might want to put that on the helmet. You can use this method to do that. So I'm going to come out of full screen mode and let's make that. I've changed the size of all this stuff, haven't I now? To make that it was there. Like that. So let me head over to move these out of the way. Press G. Like so. Move these there. I'm going to use this method. So let's head over back to the live version of our file. This one. Let's make sure we save. And what I'm going to do is select the helmet. Doesn't really matter if you select it right now. Press 3 on the numpad. Go to the side view. Let's switch over to the solid shaded viewport mode. Now make sure that you've actually selected the helmet and not the inner padding. So select the helmet only. And then I'm going to tab into edit mode. Press 3 to select face select mode. Press 3 on the keyboard. Then press A and to select all of the faces. But you could just select a bunch of them. You don't have to select all of them. But I'm going to do all of them just for the sake of this video. So with that selected, I can now press U, project from view, like that. And that's all I'm going to do. Now nothing's changed, nothing will change in the viewport. If I go back to rendering, it looks exactly the same. And that's what you should expect. But what you will find is, if you head over to the data properties for this object here, just down here, if I select that, you now have an entry under UV maps. If there's UV maps, it will be collapsed. Open it up. You can see there it says UV map. I'm going to select that and rename it, double click it. And I'm going to call that side projection. Just so we know what it is, right? So again, let's save your file. Get over to shading. And let's just bring that into view there. Here's our principled BSDF, nothing amazing. The first thing I want to do is add and I want to use a gradient, a radial gradient. I'm going to select Shift A to add a node, search, and type in gradient. There it comes there, gradient texture. Just actually leave that there. We want that to be a quadratic sphere, one that seems to work. So there's our gradient sphere. Then we want to add a mapping node that's plugged into that. So we can either, well, just Shift A, search mapping. There it is, and let's plug the vector output into the input of the gradient texture. Now we want to use the UV map we just created, which we've called side projection. So to do that, and I forget what the object thing is called. Let's do Shift A, search. I think it's just UV map. Yeah. This one or this one? I think it's this one. No, it's not. So Shift A, search, UV, select the first one. That's the one there. You just want to enable here on the drop down, click in there and select side projection. With that, plug the output into the input on the mapping node. Now we have that. And this is calculating. If you're not familiar with nodes in materials, this is the output on this side, on the right hand side. This is the input from the left hand side. So everything that comes across from this, oops, I can't annotate in this window, can I? I can. Everything that comes from this side is taken and then fed into this one. Then that's fed into the output over here. That's what you would see in the screen in your viewport. So that's how that works. Just delete all these stations. You can create a really complex setup of nodes and do all sorts of clever things with materials. But I'm going to keep this really simple. In my other videos, I do have more complex materials. If you want to see that, check out some of my other videos. I hope you like them. So let's bring these together like this. So anyway, we want that to come out now and be plugged into a color ramp. Now at the moment, we can just take this and plug it into here. That's what I did initially. So let's just see what happens, what the result is. go to the output of the color into the base color of our principled BSDF. Put that into rendered mode and see what we actually have. You can see our helmet looks a little bit, it looks cool, and it's got some sort of gradient, I believe. I think it is, going from one end to the other, but it's hard to see. I'm just using, with Node Wrangler add-on enabled, you can do Control Shift left mouse button click to see the output of that node only. And I'm not really seeing any, you can see the gradient is exactly kind of like gray to black. It's there, but it's not working the way we want it. So we need to figure out how to manipulate this spherical gradient. And that's why we added, I added a color ramp and a mix node. So I'll do that. We add a color ramp first, and that's found under vector, sorry, not vector, converter, color ramp. And so now it's stuck to your mouse, just drop it onto that line there. Now it connects this output through this to that, right? Simple. So if we play around with these sliders now, you can see things are happening in our viewport. You've now got a soft gradient, which is looking really nice. If you like that, you can then go and play around with the rotation. So that one has no effect. Back to 0. Y has no effect. Z, also no effect. Fair enough. Maybe I've got to do something else here. The location obviously works. You can see that was working like that. But for now, let's leave them all at 0. And let's come back to our color ramp. And we don't want a smooth gradation. We want an actual, hard line between the black and the white. So let's change this interpolation from linear to constant. Now, just move the black there. Doesn't make any difference. There's our white line. If we move this white line, you can see that's actually growing across the helmet. And that's actually a pretty good thing to do right there. We'll leave it like that for a moment so you can see easily the effect. All I wanted to do now is control the color, because all we have at the moment is black and white. And if I select this, you can do that, right? Which is cool. However, I'm going to use this black and white as a mask, just like you would do in Photoshop or Affinity Photo or other drawing packages. I'm going to use that as a mask. So to do that, we're going to add a mixed color node. Let's make some space for that. Drag and select these, press G to move them across, and Shift A, search for mix color, like that. That's the one I meant to say, mixed color. Drag and just drop that on that line there. Now that sits from the output of this, into that. But if we don't want it to go here, because this is, if I unplug that, this is color 1, this is color 2. Factor is your mask. So as I said, I want to use this. So if I demonstrate what this does. So let's, for example, put a red color here and a almost white color there. If you can see there's like a pink, tint of pink there. If I put it all the way to the left, it only shows the white color. If I pull it all the way to the right, it only shows the red color. In between is a mix of strength between those two. Think of it as mixing paints. That's all it is. So we're going to use the color ramp output as our mask. And there you go. Now we've got red. We can change the color here to anything you like very easily, like so. That looks pretty cool. Put that back to red again for now. Although I do like blue. Like it, something like that. Probably fine for that. Now we want to swap, probably want to swap these colors. If you don't want to swap these, but for whatever reason, you can actually invert these. You can do flip color ramp. And obviously bring these down the other way. You get that flip the other way. Again, for this exercise, I'll leave it as I had it before. Oops, I flipped it again. Like that, just so we've got it there. You can see it. And I'll switch back to, you can see there, that's what we've got. So that's great. The other thing to do now is I then played around with these. In fact, it's not actually hitting from the side, is it? Because if these were 0, it's down there. So we want to shift that gradient to the center of that area there. So to do that, I played around with these until it looked right. First of all, let's make the circle smaller. Leave it there for now. Let's just play around with these. So that's coming across, you can see left to right. And I want to something here. Trial and error. So I bring that there. Now we can maybe make that a little bit smaller. Like that. Now we can do the Y. That's going up and down. You can see that. Let's leave it there. And then bring this out again until we start to see the circle coming into play. And there it is. Now we can switch to the side view, 3 on the numpad. Now we can refine the numbers. I'm going to zoom in here. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to hold down the shift key so I get finer control. So, whoops, it says that and it's gone crazy. Let's bring that into view a bit more. So it's about there. And then this one is about there. You can also click on this and maybe, just put in little incremental changes like that. If that's too much, then maybe if that's too much, 0.5. That brings it down somewhere like that. That's pretty good. So that's probably, is it close to the one I had before? No. Different model, different result. So feel free to experiment with these things and you'll get the same result. Going back to this, I'm happy with that. The other thing is that should be clipping about halfway through this part. So that just means we need to move this like that. And there you go. There's our lovely circle on the side of the helmet. How was that? Was that pretty easy? I think it was. I think it is. I hope it is. Now, if you want to make this, essentially, if you want, you can call it a day here. You can actually add the little stud thing here, which I think I might do because I would need that. Just have a look at my trim here. I felt as though it wasn't sticking out enough. That's actually fine. Yeah. I may add the little stud thing there because I think that's going to wrap it up. And also the screw head, of course. That's a good point. So if you want to kind of cheat or get things done quickly, it's not cheating. It's getting things done quickly. You have 2 methods or options available to you, right? One of them is built into Blender. You can actually create a screw head with the click of a button, give or take. Second one is you can either find one online, download it, add it to Blender, and manipulate that way. Or 3 methods, I guess, or 4. Make your own, or use Blender Kit as well. So I won't use Blender Kit because I want to make one on my own. But if I was to use Blender Kit, for example, select Find Models, which is just that one there. If I type in screw, let's see what comes back. You can see we have a whole bunch of results. And the texture as well. That's not the kind of screw that we need. One of these might do it. It's not quite right, but you can maybe use a part of one of the screws here just to get what you need. But delete most of it and just use the part that you need. That's always an option. You can see there's plenty of them here. Again, you can just drag and drop these into your scene and that's it, you're done. Right? So I'm just going to close that and this. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to actually try to quickly model one. Incidentally, if you head over to my channel, if I just open up my channel for a moment, I do actually have a video showing you how to make screw heads. Now it may not be this particular screw head that I need today, but it is a screw head nonetheless. So I head over to my channel. I'll just quickly show you. So we go to videos and scroll down. There it is here. So Phillips pan head screw. Again, it's not the screw we need in this exercise for this helmet, but in this video, I will show you how to make a pan head screw by a Phillips screw head. Like so, and what have you. So you feel free to check that out if you want. It's there, why not? The other option is head over to edit. Now, in fact, let me just see if I have it installed. It's an add-on. So if I do Shift A to add something, mesh, I may already have it here. You can see they've got pipe joints, gemstones, extras. I'm not sure if it's here. Got rock generator, beam builder, and other things. Got gears, torus objects, math objects, functions. I cannot see bolts, and that's because the add-on is actually bolt factory, I believe. I head over to edit preferences, and I don't know if it comes with Blender. So if I search for bolt, nothing comes up. So we delete that. So what we need to do is click on extensions, and then here you can search for bolt, and there it is. So with that available, you can just click install, and I'll do that in real time. Now it's installed. You can actually click save preferences if it's not already auto saved. And now if I do Shift A, mesh, you've got modern primitive, that's not in there. Under here somewhere, extras, no, or is it? Bolt. There it is. Now I can't see it because it's inside the helmet there. Brilliant. Let's turn on wireframe. Let me just press 0 on the numpad to bring it into focus. So there's a screw head by default. In fact, let me just undo that, and I'll put the 3D cursor over here. Do that with Shift. Hold down Shift and right click, and that'll place the 3D cursor somewhere else. Now when I add something, bolt is going to add it in that position. We'll just bring that into focus again. There's one bolt head, and the one we want looks something like this, right? That's the one we want. So you can make that yourself, or you can use Bolt Factory to find something similar and then adapt it. So if you just go through the options now, we've got a model here called bolt, and we've got nut. So you can select which type you want. You can select the type of bit type, got Allen key, Torx, and Phillips. So not the one we need, really. Now you can change these as well. So you've got the head of the bolt. Maybe we could select none for now. And if we select the head and change it to cap, that looks more like what we need. But again, you wouldn't do this because it's really a simple object. You don't need all of this stuff, right? You don't need any of that. Seth, hey, welcome. Good to have you. Hope you're enjoying today's stream. Seth says there must be an exact way to match the gradient to the bump out. Yeah. I mean, yes, there will be. Just referring, I think we're going back to the gradient on the helmet, right? And let me just come out of this for a moment and delete that. And also, while I'm here, just purge unused data because we made some stuff. Now, if I go back to this, Steph, I think you're referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, please. Must be an exact way to match the gradient to the bump out. You know what? There probably is. I don't know if I would know exactly how to do that. Only because the issue that I think is causing this kind of, you can't quite nail it to the exact dimensions and things like that, is because every object is different and every object has a different scale and orientation. So, you know, this helmet in itself right now is very large. It's over 4 meters in one dimension. It's a very big helmet. So for that reason alone, there's no surefire way to create the same consistent output every single time, right? You've got to try playing around with some of the values in the mapping node like we did here. So I figured out that this was the values that worked for this object. If I was to create another object, let's try an example. If we add the 3D cursors there, if I add an icosphere, let's make that quite smooth. Create 5 subdivisions and shade smooth. Now this object is clearly smaller than my helmet just there. If I look at the material, we've got helmet main. If I select that and assign the same material, find it, there it is. And we don't have the same result. And that's probably because we don't have a side projection for this thing, right? But as I said before, if I add a texture coordinate system, that will also work. Change that to object and use that instead. I can't even see the gradient on there. So that means let's zero that out. Let's make a copy of that. We know that works, right? But not for this, but it works for this. I don't want to mess up the material because it's shared between 2 objects. Anyway, I digress. Seth's added, I just would think there would be a way to map something to the center of an object. Yeah, Seth, I can relate. I really do. To map the gradient texture, I mean, yeah. Thanks for that bit of input there, Seth. That's really good. I totally agree with you. This is one of the things that annoy me a little bit about Blender is, yeah, that works. It's one of the annoyances I have. It's a bit of a pet peeve, but it's not a really major problem. It's just a bit fiddly. Is trying to figure out how to get the same thing happening from one object to the other, because they behave in very different ways. Now, if I was a smart person, I would probably figure out the science behind this, as it were, i.e. the math coding that went into figuring out how these objects are calculated, their data for each object, and all this cool stuff. And I think part of that may be this. I'm not sure if this is correct, but it might be this. If I select this icosphere and I head over to the data options here, you have an option called texture space. Now this is really important because obviously it affects the texturing of your object. So by default it's set to auto texture space, and if you look at this location or the size data specifically, it's 111. Because this is actually just essentially, a perfect sphere, right? Or a cube, essentially, like a bounding box cube. So this is all 111. But if I scale this, say in the x-axis, like this, it still says 111. And that's fine, because the reason it's doing that is because we haven't applied the scale. Okay? So if I just open up this window, bring up the side menu, and apply I can do this with my add-on. It warns you when the scale is non-uniform. If not, press Control A, select apply scale. Look what happens when I do that. Hopefully this works, I don't know. If I apply the scale, now you can see here, this says X 4.2, and then Y is 1, and Z is 1, or Z is 1. Now that is defining, that is what will influence procedural materials, right? I'll say that again. This texture space information will drive how procedural materials are applied to your model. But it's not as simple as that, because if I head over to this part here, so this is influenced by this. So you can actually turn that off and say, hey, I want this to be 1, right? A cube again, but it would be a very big cube, a bounding cube. And if you want to see that, you can actually view them under Object, Visibility. I think it's there. Viewport Display, Texture Space, there it is. So again, under Object Properties, is a Viewport Display. You can toggle Texture Space, which is the data from here. You can see there this cube is 1. If I increase that, like that, and ideally, if I put it back to auto, you want the cube to be, unless you want it to repeat, right? You want it to be the minimum 4.288. So I could maybe, oops, can I copy that? Oh, just Control C, turn that off. Actually copy that here and paste that into these. Now you've got a perfect cube for your texture space just for that object. That's what that does, right? That will influence this, but not everywhere. It won't influence every output on this texture coordinate. Seth, I hope that's making sense to you. And to me, I hope I'm explaining that well. And the reason I say that is because if I can show you a good example of how this would work, if I just add a noise texture like that, and then copy this, Shift D, plug the output of that into that. I'll do this very quickly, just to show you, like that. So now we've got that on both objects. If I select this and add texture coordinates with Control T, because I have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, right? Very interesting. Thanks, Seth. This is a bit of a, what's the word? Kind of blew my mind when I learned about this, Seth, because it really made, it started to clear some of the fog about how materials work in Blender, procedural materials work in Blender. And this really helped me understand that a little bit better. I think that's what drives this. How can you get it to be more accurate? And it's like, well, I think this is it. As part of it anyway. But I digress. Let me just show you what this looks like for now. If I put this back to ease, and we have this noise texture, right? Let me make this a little bit clearer. Bring that up and increase the roughness, the detail. So you can see now we've got this kind of stone-like material, right? But they look very different on two objects. One of these, I would say here it looks stretched. It's been stretched vertically. On this one, it looks pretty uniform across all axes. And that's because we've adapted its texture space manually. If I turn this on, you can see now a huge difference that's made. Because now it's using auto space, and suddenly the size of that box has gone back to being 4 by 1. And that is a deal breaker, right? It doesn't look good. However, that's only for generated. This is what I thought when I discovered this. I'm thinking, oh, great. I'll put object and it's going to be great. But that doesn't work, because if I put the object, it works perfectly every single time. You don't need this. It's null and void, right? Even if you turn that off and I change these values, make that like this, make it like this way, make this one that way, it makes absolutely no difference to the object's texturing, because we're using object coordinates, not generated. Immediately if I use generated, we now get that. I think that's what's happening with this gradient thing, trying to place it on your models. This is the key, this is the crux of how that, I think part of it anyway, that works. But anyway, let's put that back to auto. So I hope that kind of illustrates the point, Seth. I hope that was interesting, like in helping some way to explain the anomaly of trying to figure out procedural textures. This is a major thing. So again, under data properties, texture space, you may want to untick that and enter your own values, maybe 5 or something. If you want it to repeat, just make that smaller. So make that maybe 0.2. And that will repeat here like this, right? Or you can do it here under the mapping coordinates. There's many ways to do that. Seth says, thank you. You're welcome, Seth. Thank you so much for joining me and supporting the channel. Really appreciate it. Let me just fix my material because I've broken it. Let's get rid of all of this and get rid of this and bring this back to what we had it. It's not going to work for this, of course. We don't have a side projection UV mapping for that, right? So delete that. And let's bring back this. And is that broken? Oh yeah, got to plug that in there. There we go. Cool. Anyway, we were talking about bolts, weren't we? Screw heads. Let me show you what I did on my original version and see why is my streaming software telling me that my microphone is unmuted but has no signal? Oh, you guys can hear me clearly. I think that's something else. I think that was the echo I had from the previous stream. That's what that's doing. Damn you, streaming software. Right, anyway. Let me, the screw, yeah, let me show you the one that I was working on. The one I did before. And this is test 2. Yeah, that's the one that the test one. Yeah, it's got the screw. If I go back to layout, isolate that just for a moment, turn off the mirror modifier, and then zoom in on that. You can see it's quite basic. You can see it's got some jaggies there, but it can be rendered from a distance, so I don't really need it to be high res. If not, just turn up the subdivision surface, right? Anyway, let me turn all of these. I'll walk you through this. I turn off everything here. This is the object. If I enable wireframe with my add-on just there, if not, use the drop-down. So there's the shape that I created. Yeah, thanks Clive again for confirming my audio is good and there's no echo. That's fantastic, thank you. So yeah, this is the object I actually created initially. And you can see it's quite basic. I think we'll do that again, right? So let me just show you what I did to make this. We don't need the mirror modifier. We do, tell a lie. We do need I then added a bevel modifier. So if I enable that, you can see it adds a bevel. If I do that again, you can see the difference. Okay. Now this bevel modifier is not adding a bevel to all of the edges by angle, because that is the default, remember. It's adding it by weight. That's the limiting factor, i.e. what am I looking for to apply the bevel to? We're going to use the weight method, and I'll show you how that works. You have more control, essentially. And after that, give it a subdivision modifier, and you're good to go. It's not perfect, sure, but as a rough looking screw head, because if you look at the reference material again, it is actually looking pretty rough. I mean, look at this. I mean, that's a bit scuffed. These are probably just old ones I use for the photographs, but you can tell they've got microscopic detail and scuffs and scratches, edge wear. I'm not going to go too crazy like that. I'm just going to keep it very simple. Okay, so that pretty much is what that is. So to do that, let me see what I did. Turn that off and this off. And if I just hit the side view, you can see, you get an idea of what I've done here. If you forget the recess there, you can see we've got a circle with 1, 2, 3, 4. It started with 16 sides by the look of it. But then I also needed some more detail here. So yeah. And then I added a grid fill. Then I selected some faces and extruded them. That's pretty much all I did, I believe. So let me try and replicate that from memory. And this could go completely pear-shaped, but live and learn. Revert my file. That's my test file, remember? And Seth, obviously you've seen this before. That's the test file that I've made and we're working towards today. So let's turn that back to that. All right, let's get on with this. First of all, let's put our 3D cursor where we want it to be. So that's around here. I'm going to select that object and do Shift S, brings up the snap menu, cursor to selected. And there's our cursor just there. So let's add now mesh, circle. And I'm not going to need 32 sides. Let's start with 16 and see how we go, right? Let's do 16. I think that's what I started with. Then I probably thought, no, that wasn't enough. But we'll figure it out as we go along. Let's do 16. And that's all it is. Let me just move that out of the way just there for a moment. And that's just a circle, no geometry at all. I want to tab into edit mode. First of all, let's make that a little bit smaller. So with everything selected, press A to toggle, press S, scale that down, leave it about there. Go back to object mode. Don't move these in edit mode because your pivot point's over here now. It's going to rotate over here. Undo that. move it in object mode and edit in edit mode, right? Move stuff around in edit in edit mode and move the object in. I'm waffling. You get what I mean. I'll shut up. Because we want our scale to be 111. Why? Anyway, back to edit mode. We've got this lovely 16-sided circle. I'm going to select the edge loop and go to face, grid fill. Because the top view, 7 on the numpad, that looks great. Perfect. Simple. Nothing difficult here. So, what we're going to do now, we need to make a cut in this. I think what I did before was add loop cuts here, and then maybe straighten these lines out. SX0 enter, like that. But I think I've just noticed a better way, and that is to select this edge here. Let's go with this line as the line that's gonna, make it work really. Yeah, let's go with that and think about the thickness afterwards. I'm gonna press Control B to bevel it. So press Control B, scroll the mouse wheel and get that middle edge again there. I'm just gonna scroll that out to the thickness of that screw, the part you put the screwdriver into. Let's go with about there. That gives us that. So all I've done now, what I'm going to do now is select all of the faces, and I'm going to press E to extrude and bring these up like that. So give it some thickness. Let's go with that for now. Let's do that perhaps. Let's not do it one more. Let's leave it there for now. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm just going to check face orientation. Sometimes when you extrude stuff, it will flip the normals the wrong way. So you'll end up with problems with bevel and subdivision and all sorts. So just double check that it's not red. Remember, red's on the inside, not on the outside. Again, if you don't have the add-on, you can find that under this menu in the top right. Face orientation, just there. Anyway, let's crack on. What I did then was I selected, in face select, selected these guys here. Just like that. We've got those selected. Max Headroom's in the house. Welcome. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. I hope you're enjoying the stream today. How's your day been? How's your week been? And have you got any great plans for the weekend? I'll probably do another live stream, maybe. Look, keep a lookout for the notifications from YouTube. I love doing these live streams. And if you guys have questions, please do ask. I encourage you to take part in these live streams. Let me know if there's anything you want me to address or look at in Blender for you. And yeah, it could be anything. If I can do it, I'll have a go. I'm not a genius or anything like that. If I can have a go and maybe help you out, let me know. Ask away in the chat. I'm happy to tackle it in real time. Here we go. Anyway, thanks for joining, Max. Good to see you. Thank you. Right, with these selected, I'm going to extrude these. Press E, bring it up. Bring it up to about there for now. And then the reason being, we want to select these ones now, and that will provide us with the cap, if you like, at the top. So bring those out, and you could even select these edges here and bring these out a little bit more to get a bit of a curvature, right, in this angle, like that. So, as I mentioned in my previous stream, keep it simple. This is something you can manipulate easily because it's a very simple shape, right? So it's easy for you to amend it, tweak it, and you let the modifiers do the heavy lifting for you. So add dynamic bevels. Dynamic, I mean non-destructive. Add a solidify subdivision modifier. Zach, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Hope you guys are enjoying this. I'm loving it as always, even if nobody was here, which would be a shame. But I love doing this stuff. Yeah, any questions at all? Please feel free to ask. More than happy to accommodate your requests. Right, let's see what happens now if we add a subdiv modifier to this. I'm going to use my add-on. I'm sure you guys know how to do that. If you don't, please let me know in the chat and I'll show you how to do that. well, it's there, right? Modifier, little spanner, add modifier, generate sub D. I'm going to use my add-on. Boom, done. Zach says, always enjoy these types of streams. Fantastic, lovely. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Zach. Thanks for the feedback, mate. Turn off wireframe for a moment. Right click, shade smooth. Now we're getting this really softy kind of, I don't know, UFO looking thing. Does that look like a Cylon ship from Battlestar Galactica? I need to see that. Anybody here watch Battlestar Galactica? You're probably not that old like me. But, anybody remember Battlestar Galactica? Let me show you what I mean. Battlestar Galactica. If I search for that, there we go. That's the new series, not the old one. But I think the Cylon ships might be the same. So if we just type in Cylon, oops, Cylon ships. There we go. Images. There you go. Okay. It's a bit of a reach to say my screwhead looks like a Cylon ship. But you can, yeah, it's like that. There we go. What a great TV show that was. Seth says he was more into Stargate. Yeah, Stargate's fantastic. I must admit I haven't watched all of that. I confess. Back in the day, I don't even think I watched all of Battlestar Galactica. I was just a kid back then, I guess, or a teenager. I don't remember when that was out in the 80s. Fantastic. Good stuff. And a lot of this was probably, I think a lot of this was made in Lightwave, if I'm not wrong. Lightwave 3D. Fantastic software that was. It's still around nowadays, believe it or not. Anyway, I digress. Let's go back to the live stream. So anyway, there's our Cylon ship. I mean screwhead. Speaking of Stargate, Seth and the other guys on the chat. I don't know if you remember, again, you're probably too young for this, but do you remember the Buck Rogers in the 25th century in the 80s? Seth says, you got to make one of those ships. Damn it. Oh my God. Do you know what? I would, but it would take me forever, probably. But it's a heck of a challenge and it's a great one to do, right? I mean, listen, let me know your feedback. Like, you know, my videos, I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of them, but I tend to bring out, like, make something and bring out 4, 5, 6 videos. I know it seems like a lot, but is that too much? That says, I do not. Yeah, do you think those are like, I don't want to make something so complicated that I've got to make, like, you know, tons of videos, because it takes a lot of work to do that. And the ones I've put out already take a lot of work to put out as they are. So I've got to do the testing, building, the recording over and over, and the editing takes weeks sometimes, or sometimes days to even get one video out, let alone a whole series of them. Anyway, yeah, I just thought, you know, what are you guys okay with that? Are you okay with that format? Let me know. And maybe there's something more you want to see more of. Again, let me know in the feed, you know, in the chat. Because I don't know what I'm doing. I just want to make cool videos and make cool models. So anyway, I'll crack on. Right, to tighten this up, because it's too soft, right? We need to add some bevels. However, I'm not going to do it destructively. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to go in and do, like, select an edge loop like these guys down here maybe. I can select them and do Control B and do all that good stuff. Go to 1. I'm not going to do that because that adds geometry and you lose a bit more control over it, right? Not for this anyway. What I'm going to do instead, well, first of all, let's get rid of, don't need all of these bottom faces. So I'm going to select all of these. There's a much quicker way to do this, but I took the slow way. Seth says, I think you need to add more info in your titles with the multi-part format. Interesting. Because I don't know exactly what you focus on. Yeah, Seth, that's a great point. Do it in your thumbnail too. I did think about this a lot of times, and I always sat on the fence, like, because I watch a lot of YouTube videos about Blender, and I watch them out of interest, of course. I love watching that stuff, and I noticed that all the thumbnails are the same, like from one part to another. Mostly, not always, but mostly, they're all the same thumbnails. So I thought, well, maybe that's best practice. Maybe that's what people expect to see. And if I was to do something different, that would break the flow and think, oh, there's no more videos in that series because it's got a different thumbnail, right? So for that reason, I kept them the same and just made sure that I added numbers, the thumbnails. But the other part is an excellent point, is what are you making in those videos? Well, I guess really, Seth, the answer to that is, first of all, have a look at the video description. I may not have gone and actually put in all the detail in the description of exactly what I'll be doing, but I will give you a general ballpark of, hopefully I have, forgive me if I haven't, but I'll make sure to do that next time, Seth, all right? I hope that helps. But also, I do add, and I'm quite proud of this, I guess, I do add precise chapters to the videos, and I will tell you there exactly what I'm going to do. So for example, in this video, if this was a video like my usual ones and the chapters were there, I would say, hey, at this timestamp, I will be making the screw head. So you know exactly what it is I'm doing and where to find it. You can just click it and off you go. So yeah, I always do that on my videos. I always make sure to add a chapter or chapters and tell you what it is I'm modeling. So hopefully that kind of helps some way, Seth, to with that aspect of it. The other part, to answer another part of your question, is on the thumbnails. And I did think about showing the model, but then having some sort of highlighter to say, this is what I'll be doing in this video. So I never kind of really thought of an elegant way to do that without breaking the thumbnail in such a way that it looked disjointed from the others. But I'm sure there's ways to do it, right? I just haven't got my head down and actually got on with that. But yeah, I can absolutely relate to what you're saying there, Seth, and it has crossed my mind, and I'll think about it for future videos too. So in the meantime, please do check the video description, because I do add chapters there, and they should be adequate, I think. Again, if not, let me know and I will address that. Okay, thanks for that. Right, cracking on. I've got all these bottom faces selected. I'm going to press I to inset. We've got a nice support loop there, support edges. That will do. And press delete. Get rid of these. We don't need that. Now we've got a hole in the bottom of our screw head. That's fine. So, talking about turn off the sub D, non-destructive workflow. Just for a moment. Seth also adds the in-video extras like chapters, detailed descriptions are good, but I feel you still need extra info in the thumbnails. So I don't need to click the video. Okay, yeah, that's the point. To know what each video is generally about, like modeling a particular part, or texturing, or UV unwrapping. Noted. Thanks, Seth. Thanks for the feedback. Okay, yep, I'll bear that in mind for next time. And keep me posted. Give me feedback. Is it better? Is it is it in the right direction? Communication is key. Keep talking to me. Thanks for that, Seth. Appreciate it. Right, so what I'm going to do now is use a non-destructive workflow. This is one technique that I love to use. Yeah, this technique is something that I like to interchange with other techniques, like destructive versus non-destructive, but it depends on the context. For this one, I might as well do this one, like non-destructive. So, long story short, I'm going to go into edge mode, and I want to select all of the edges that I want to add a bevel to, i.e. I want to define as being hard surface modeling, essentially, right? So I'm going to alt click and select these edges here. Alt click these ones here. And we want the ones in the middle, down there in the recess, in the corner. We want this one, and maybe this one, I'm not sure. We can tweak it afterwards. If I select just these ones, oh, and these ones here, of course, we want those to be hard, right? now we've got these selected. Let's go head over to the item menu. So press N to bring that up. In the item menu, looking for something called edges data or edge data. And we want to select mean bevel weight, just there, and enter a value of 1. Now you could argue, and I had this in a comment, I think it was it Youssef that actually asked this? I think it was, in a comment you left on one of my videos about, why not use a sharp edge, or assign sharp edges or a mean crease, that kind of stuff. And I did explain in that that I didn't really, for me, I didn't really find the results for the shading quite to the quality that I was expecting. So I used other methods, which is like adding support loops. I really like to do that. So again, your mileage may vary. Yes, that was you, Seth. Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, I remember now. Thank you for that. I really appreciate you leaving comments on my videos. Really helpful. Thank you. So anyway, I've got these edges selected and I've added a mean bevel weight of 1, i.e. 100%, right? 0, 100% influence. Now we've got that. They've turned blue. My voice has turned into a frog. Wonderful. These are blue. Now, why is that important? Because if we go back to a shape, if I turn that on, nothing happens. It looks exactly the same. But first of all, we need to add, generate bevel modifier. That needs to be above the subdivision modifier, first in the stack. Now, what's important is 2 things. One is obviously the segments and the amount, but first one is which method are we using to bevel? Another interrupter. Guess what? It's Facebook. Hold on, I put that on silent for a moment. Let me just do that. There we go, silent. Yeah, the limit method is the one that's important here because the default is angle, which is 30 degrees. I want weight because that's what we specified. You can see immediately when I did that, angle, weight. That's because it's looking for weighted edges, and we've got those that we just selected, right? Which is great. The other thing I want to do is profile set to 1, shape set to 1, and the reason for that, if I turn on the wireframe, is because, and also add 2 segments. You just keep an eye on this corner, like this corner here. If I do 0.5, it rounds it off, right? And that's fine. But when you turn this on, that rounds it off even more. That becomes quite soft, right? Not extremely soft, but it becomes a little bit softer. If I add this, if I set the shape to 1, you can see that becomes a little bit harder, sharper, not harder, sharper is the word I'm looking for. We'll come to this in a moment because that looks terrible. So that's why I like to do that. Let's turn off optimal display. So yeah, let's turn the sub D off. So by doing that, we're having a not much harder, a slightly harder edge, essentially, right? The next thing to do is change the size, the amount. So if I turn to 0, it's all gone. Hold down Shift and slowly drag that up. That gives us a size of our bevel. I'm going to go with something like that, pretty much what it was. And obviously, if I turn this on, we have an issue, right? Because some horrible topology going on there. And you might be happy with that because you may not see it from the top. Get away with that in distant render. Fair enough. But I like to fix things if I can. You never know if maybe if this is a client job, and someone says, "Hey, can you show that hinge off? Zoom in on that hinge." Well, your screw head may not be up to snuff. So if you work out the kinks first, it might be easier later down the line, right? So anyway, let's move that over here a bit. So let's fix these. Now, the other thing that's really important when you're doing bevels, you turn off the sub D, is one final setting, and I believe this should be a default setting, not what's here. The default setting for this under geometry meter outer should be set to arc. That's really important. I'll hopefully show you why once I start. I keep hitting the microphone. Once I start actually adding more bevels to this, you'll see why. You won't see the effect just yet. Maybe if I make this a little bit smaller, I can show you. 3.5. 2. Maybe smaller still. Yeah, you can't really see it there. Let's go back to 0.5. Right, leave it there. So clearly we need to do more edge weights, assign more edge weights. So what I'm going to do is select, let's turn off bevel modifier. I'm going to select these edges as well that go all the way around here for now. Right, we've got all of that. And now I'm going to assign a bevel weight of 1 to those as well. And those edges also go blue to indicate that happened, right? So go back to object mode. Now we turn on our bevel modifier. We can see we have this going on here, which looks better. And it also bevels it around here, which may not be what we want because we now get a much harder, actually that might be okay actually. We get a much harder and flat-sided topology because we have all these edge loops being generated by the bevel modifier along these edges. So if you don't like that, you could try to deselect these. Let's do that to see what happens. Maybe we don't want these, but I hold down Control, click there, and then Shift, and then Control. There we go. We don't want these to be beveled. Let's turn that back to 0. And now we turn this on. Now we can see the effect of that arc that I mentioned here. This is awful. If the default is sharp, it does this. And that's really bad for several reasons. You can see we've got an engon, not an engon. We do have a quad there, but it's actually collapsed kind of in on itself. It's not a valid quad. When you turn this on, you will get visual artifacts somewhere. You get pinching along here. It's not as clean. That looks fine actually, but it won't be as clean as it should be. You can see it kind of sticks out there a little bit. That's because that's set to sharp. Set to arc, that now gives you a much better flow from one part of the model into another because the topology is nicer. And the topology that looks nicer is this. 2 quads make up that arc around the corner. That's exactly what you want. And that's that setting there. Anyway, I've gone on long enough about that. So that's looking pretty good. If I enable that again, and this might actually be okay. We can check to see if our topology is good, and it doesn't look too bad. If I put that to 2 for render, and that might actually be okay. Let's turn off our wireframe. Have a look. Now I'm going to call that done. I'm sure you can probably make that a little bit nicer, but I think that's pretty good close up, right? Close renders, and I say it's pretty good from a distance as well. Let's go with that. Fantastic. Let's put it into position and scale it and rotate it and apply the scale, right? Very important. Let's go to, first of all, let's rename it. Find it in our, oops, I didn't drop it in the right collection. Under helmet, select that. Let's name that hinge screw head. So we're going to put that at this location where our 3D cursor is. So Shift S, selection to cursor. We want the rotation to be around the Y. So we can rotate it manually or type it in or just go to here, type in 90. That rotates it on the Y axis, like that, like so. And we know for sure that if we bring back our reference material, we know for sure that that is way too big, right? Let's go to the side view, 3 on the numpad, X-ray. You can see there's our screw, there's our screw. Let's scale that down. But I'll show you what happens when you scale it down. That's about there. That's good enough. Let's go back to show you what happens here. Turn off the reference material, hit save a project. Now if we look at this, this still looks good. And the reason that looks good still is because we haven't applied the scale. That's a biggie, because if you don't apply the scale, now in this instance, we're actually okay. You could get away with it. But in most instances, you don't want your non-uniform scale. You can see there we've got 0.49 across all axes. Not good. And in my BB Toolkit Pro add-on and free will warn you if the scale is non-uniform, and that's why it's red in the tools part there. So we want to apply the scale, but if I do that, watch what happens to this. Apply scale. I want to do that with a Control A if you want. Control A, scale. Do it with my add-on. Apply scale. Now that didn't make a huge amount of difference, disappointingly. But if I turn on the wireframe and then turn off the subdivision, collapse these guys. Yeah. What should happen is you can see now we've got a much larger bevel. That's because we've applied the scale and the bevel is still 0.005. The scale value doesn't scale relative to the object. If you've ever used Affinity Photo, and I recommend you check it out. It's an amazing alternative to Photoshop, and it's no subscription, and it's a one-off payment. It's really cheap. Anyway, I digress. If you apply a layer effect in Affinity Photo, there's an option that says scale with layer or something like that, which means that if you add a drop shadow to a layer in Affinity Photo and you check that box, your drop shadow will scale relative to the size of your object in that layer. This doesn't happen in 3D in Blender. I wish it did. Like, you could have been an option here to say, hey, tick box, scale with object. And that would dynamically rescale the values or the amount as you scaled your object. As it doesn't happen, we've now got a larger bevel, but it still works. We haven't overlapped. We've almost overlapped here. You can just about see it there. That's probably too close. So you want to bring that down a smidge, maybe to a 4. Still no difference, barely. Try 3. Still no difference, still too big. That's actually clamping through. 2.5. There we go. So 0.005, way too much. It was double than it should have been. Did you guys know about that? Is that something that you're aware of when it comes to these applying the scale stuff? And it has caught me out in the past where I've modded everything, and I want to make the video, record it, and send it out, put it on YouTube. And then I'm thinking, I'll just render it out in animation or a turntable. So I set up the scene and I scale my objects, render it, and then I realize I'm like, why does that look a bit odd? Because I didn't when I applied the scale, I didn't change the values on the modifiers. And I really don't like that. I think it needs to be relative, I think. Maybe there's a setting in here somewhere that actually does that, but I couldn't see it anywhere, so I don't think it does it. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. Let's leave that there. Let's turn on sub D, turn off wireframe, and we've got our screw head. But I think it's clipping through that bit there. Now, I think technically, I'm not wrong. To show you what I mean. Technically, my model's not right, because if you look at this, is that a grill there? Sure, it wasn't a grill. I'll come back to that anyway. If I go to the white one, actually. Yeah. If you look at the screw head here, I think technically this has actually got a hole. It has got a hole in the middle. It has to, for the screw to get into. So ideally, you want to make a hole in this metallic part and place your screw head inside that. So we can do that very easily. So if that was your object, which is obviously that one, tap into edit mode. We can create an inset and make the hole inside there, right? Let's try and do that. Let's just add, select these 4. In fact, in both sides, don't we? These 4, Control plus, all the way to the edge, and then I to inset. I don't need to do that either. I'm just going to do this. Really bad. It's going to be terrible. What you can do is select these 4. Oh yeah, I showed you the wrong way. I should do it this way. It's much. Seth says, I'm aware now. Good to hear, Seth. Hope that was useful. So I'm going to select these faces in the middle and delete them. Save my file. And now we've got a hole there, but it's not round. So we're going to use loop tools. If you're not familiar with loop tools, enable it in the preferences. To search for it under extensions or add-ons. Enable it. It comes with Blender, and it's amazing. I'm going to select these edges there, edge loops. Let's do both. Turn that off. Let's do both and see what happens. Select all of those. Right click, loop tools, excuse me, and circle. Fantastic, it worked first time. Wow. Yes, I love that. There's our, make sure it's aligned. Press 1 on the keyboard for front view. Wireframe, yeah, that's perfect. That's great. What we need to do now, if we enable this, we've got a circle. We've got a hole in there. We need to connect them, right? Let's select this edge loop and that one. Right click, bridge edge loops. And there you go. And we need to make these, sorry, let's turn that on. We need to make these, what's the word I'm looking for? Hard edged, because if you look at this one, you can see we've got some nice detailed edges there. These ones are very soft and they're wrapped around each other like a blade, edge of a blade, right? Not good. We need to add supporting edge loops. So going back to what we did with the screw head, you can use the edges data, mean crease of 1, and use a bevel modifier set to weight as a limit method. That will control the bevels, what we want to bevel on our object. But for this demonstration, I think I will do a shortcut because we've already got all of this stuff here. You know, I don't want to, it's not going to be easy to create an inset here without messing it up. So what I'm going to try to do instead is select all of these faces by clicking on that there with the Alt key. I'm going to do Alt E, extrude faces along normals. Right, Alt E brings up the menu, extrude faces along normals. Move my mouse out, and now I've got a support loop around it, around those edges, like that. What that's left to do is add some loop cuts in here, because if I enable this now, turn off the wireframe, it's a little bit harder, but it's still quite rounded off in that recess. So very easy to fix. Let's add a couple of loop cuts. Control R, put 2 in there, and maybe scale them along the X, so SX, bring them out nearer to the edge. And now we have a much harder edge flow. And one thing finally is, notice up here, I don't know if I did it here actually, I didn't, but I probably should have, is you can assign, turn that off again, you can assign maybe to these faces, or edges I should say, you can assign a mean crease of 1. And the reason for that is now that is going to be completely flat in that area. Turn on the wireframe. Our subdivision, if I did 2 or 3, say first, 3, you notice our subdivision doesn't spill over into this flat area. The mean crease acts as a barrier, stops it dead right there. Unlike some medications I could mention in recent years. But anyway, I digress. Let's turn that off. Go back to 1. And we can do the same for these ones here. Maybe that will work. Try that. Add a mean crease of 1. And then turn that back on. And now we've got all the detail up in this area, but not in this area. We don't need it to be because it's a flat surface there. So let's turn wireframe off. That looks pretty good. Right. That's a bit of a convoluted way to do this. That's because I started off with a cylinder and I could have started off with something else. Right? Anyway, that's that. Let's put this back to where it was. Let's go to 3 or 1 in this case. I'm going to move that up against this part here. So hold down Shift. There. There's our screw head. Let's bring that out for a moment. And we can see that our hole is too small. So what do we do there? Well, we can tab into edit mode, turn that off again, go to face select, alt click, control numpad row selection. Select those guys. We want to scale these out, but we don't want to scale it in the X. So if I scale this now, like just S, I'm going to scale in all axes, right? Really want to scale on the Z and the Y. So I'm going to go to the side view, X-ray, turn on our, we've got our screw head there, we can see our screw head. I'm going to press S for scale, but then Shift X, that will exclude the X axis. We're going to scale that up. Now I can't really see how big that is because we haven't got this turned on. I'm going to turn that on, turn on the cage. Now I can see what I'm doing a bit more. So let's do S, Shift X again. And there's our screw head there. So I'm going to bring that in around there. Now if I toggle out, turn that off, bring that into focus. Well, bring that there. I can place that inside the recess. Maybe clip it in a little bit. I'm going as far as you like, really. Ideally, this should also have a hole in the middle, but I didn't model it like that, so just leave it as it is for now. But maybe make a hole in your version if you're going to make this. But for now, I'm just going to leave the screw head there until it doesn't clip on the other side. So I'm going to go about there. Perfect. What that's left to do now is assign a material, and we're done. Fantastic. More water, I think. How are we doing out there? All good? I know it's been a long one today. I apologize, but you know, this is what it takes to get work done, and I love it. So I hope you do too. I won't do this bit here. That's really easy. It's literally just a cylinder with a bevel on it, so you can do that in your own time if you feel like it. Let's add a material to the screw head, and also let's add. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to apply the rotation because it's only rotated 90 degrees. I want that to be its default rotation. So I'm going to head over to my add-on, apply rotation. Now that's 0, 0, 0. You can do that with Control A, apply rotation. And what I'm going to then do is select mirror object. I want mirror object, and do X and add. And of course, that's all. It's only going to add a mirror object, right? Sorry, a mirror modifier. So I'm going to place that at the top of the stack. And that's now on the other side, as you can see there. Okay. Let's save. And make sure we have merge on. Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, let's get our material done. We might even have one that we can use because we've got this material here, but I don't think it would use the same material as the screw head, like same kind of look. We've got inner padding. It's black, almost black. Looking at you, Clive. That was your choice. And very cheeky if I do that. Did it more of a brown? Way cooler. But I don't know what I'm doing. So. Yeah, the screw head. What do we have? We can add to this. We've got metal, which is this one here. We have nothing really, so I'm just going to add a new one and call that helmet hinge screw head. And there's our material. I'm going to make that metallic. So we get that. Bring the roughness down, not too much because it's got a bit of a matte finish to it. I think the coating of the screw head. Maybe 0.3. Yeah, let's leave it at 0.3. Specular. If you're going to have, I could be wrong. If you're going to have metallic set to 1, I like to turn the IOI level to 0.5. That gives it a more realistic interpretation of real world physics as I understand it. I saw that in a video somewhere. Can't remember where. But that's how I understood it, so that's what I'm doing now. Hey ho, live and learn. And And the color is just all we need to make that dark gray. That's pretty cool. Let's lose our overlays. Let's turn that off here. Top right, turn these off. Overlays. So I can see my model in a better light. I'm happy with that. Probably the last thing you want to do is, just to give it a bit more variety, is select the screw and we want to rotate it along the x-axis by a little bit, just to make it look a bit more organic. So maybe put in 35 degrees or whatever you want, like that. Gives it a bit more of a nicer look. Clive says thanks. You're welcome. So yeah, I think we're there. I'm really pleased with this. I love this. That sounded awful, but love my own work. Don't mean it that way. I just love the fact that I'm using Blender, I'm building cool models, and I'm happy with the result. That's it. Is there a big gap there? There is a big gap there. We're going to move these guys all the way. Wait a minute, that's got a different gap. Right, okay, problem. This is probably in the wrong place. Then our overlays back on. What have I done wrong? So this visor, is it the helmet that's moved? No, that looks fine. Looking at these grid lines there, that looks about the same gap. This one, however, visor. What do we have on the sub? Okay, we've got a sub D modifier on it. We don't have anything else. But that one is closer to this stuff. Unless I've moved the mirror object, which hasn't been moved on the X. Make sure. Any ideas, guys, why that's not quite aligning correctly? I've got a different gap here than I have on this side. Now the gap on the visor, let's do a little test. Let's add a cube. So Shift A, cube, scale it down, scale it on the Y, like that, scale it down, scale it on the Y. I'm gonna put that in the gap there. Scale that down to the size of that gap, give or take. Right, it's about that big, right? That gap there. So if we bring that over to the other side, yeah, there's our problem, isn't it? Like that wireframe. The gap here is way smaller there. That should be out here. So the visor is at fault here. What's going on? Well, easy fix, to be fair. Let's delete that cube firstly. I left over here. Delete that. Easy fix, because we can use mirror modifiers. So we don't need to have the whole visor as one object right now. We can fix that. So I'm going to save my file, tab into edit mode, go to front view or Control 1 to get the other side, flip the view. Now you need to be in X-ray or wireframe mode for this, so I'm going to switch to wireframe. What was that noise? I don't know what that noise was. Something made the noise anyway. Phone or something. I'm going to select half of the visor. Let's select this half. Remember, be in wireframe or X-ray mode. Select everything. And then we can delete these vertices. Wait, am I deleting the right half? If I do that. This one is wrong. This one is right. That would depend if it's clipping through the helmet. So if we can see it clipping through here, that's wrong. So let's just go to render view again. And I think I do see some clipping there. Yeah, just there. You can make out, I'll rotate the HDRI, find the right angle. Yeah, you can see there, that red is from this bulge. So this is the wrong side. So we actually need to delete this side. Yeah, let's delete that half. Now we've got half of that. Let's add a mirror modifier, put it up in the stack. We want clipping on, we want it to be on the X, and we want our object, mirror object, to be the empty. Now you can see that's got the right gap now. There's a gap there between those parts there. So I'm going to leave it like that. That's great. That's good. Let's go to Control 1. Solid mode. There's our plastic, our metal screw head. And I think that's pretty good. Get me there. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call that done, guys. As I say, you've got the little bit there. I'm not going to do that today. I don't think it's really worth it. Yeah, I'm sure you can figure that out if you wanted to try and make the same helmet that I've been making here, or something even better. I will probably start adding more materials to this, like maybe, I don't know, some sort of maybe some stickers, that kind of stuff. You can make a grunge version of it where it's like used, and maybe you've got some bits that are chipped away. That'd be really cool. And again, you can use Blender Kit if you want to do that for the materials. Drag and drop them, see what happens, or create your own materials. I just won't be doing it in this video today. So I'm going to save it there and leave it there for today. Clive, Seth, Max, Zach, and the others who are probably not there now, thank you ever so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I certainly have. And look out for the notifications from YouTube. I will be live again soon, I hope, with a new project. If not, whatever you guys want, we can take a look at. Clive says, let's go riding. Yeah. Do you have a horse, Clive? Do you have a horse? I'm not wealthy enough, my friend, to have a horse. Anyway, I'll let you go, guys. And before I go, please do hit that like button. It really helps me get onto the good side of YouTube. And I really need the support. That'd be fantastic if you could do that for me. Thank you so much. And if you're not already subscribe. Good night, Clive. Thank you. And you don't have a horse either. Well, you know, maybe one day. Yeah, as I said, I'm on Patreon. Find me there. Links in the description if you want to support the channel and the work that I do. All free, of course. And I'm not monetized, so I don't make a single cent out of all of the work that I do. Yeah, support the channel on Streamlabs. There's links, Patreon, and Google, YouTube memberships. All the details in the description. With that said, for now, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.